me a personalized letter and sent me a Christmas card. And so anyway, that meant so much to me. And I went to school and I showed Michael and his friends, and they just laughed. And I was thinking to myself, this is going to be what's going to finally get me in, you know?
And it didn't work.
Oh, they laughed and they said, "What? You think this is special? Give me a break, you know? You're never going to be on Second City television.
No, but you're on my television.
But I'm on your television.
And we're here
show.
in Second City, is it?
Right.
So the issues were that you were the misfit. Did you leave right after high school to come to New York? Did you want to get out of there in the worst way?
I really did.
One of her classmates from high school that she says was one of the tormentors has been listening backstage. Michael, will you come on out now, please? Come on and sit down next to Tracy, if you will. I'm going to go in the audience. Tracy is painting a picture of someone who was teased so unmercifully in high school that 10 years later, she cannot go to her reunion. 2 weeks you have till your reunion, and that you were a part of it. Is that true?
There were myself and several of the other members of our class in the different classes. Basically, almost as a matter of policy, just gave Tracy hell.
What was the policy to give Tracy? So Tracy is not making this up.
No.
Like,
no.
I thought I was unpopular, and maybe in my head, I think everyone thinks they are. But you're saying she's telling the truth.
Yes. Oh, yes.
What was the policy to get Tracy?
The policy, I think, was just to put someone down.
I was weird. That helped.
Yeah. You know,
Was she weird?
She was different. She wasn't one of the in crowd, if you will. She was, you know, she wrote off to SCTV. She had fantasies of SCTV, and when she got this autographed postcard back, you know, I watched SCTV myself. You know, Martin Short, Rick Moranis, and she came in showing this, and she was proud of herself, and we were like, oh, how nice for you.
Fantasy was the only way I could deal with the way you guys treated me.
But you know, we could have cared less one way or the other. You know, and what she was talking about earlier about her complexion, it was never with us a case of walking up to her, looking her in the eye and saying, "Hi, pizza face, what's new?" But it became almost an alternate identification.
Towards the end, there was more people of color, but it was still mainly white.
What high school?
Oceana in Pacifica, California.
Oceana, Pacifica, California. They had nicknames for each other. Now, she was called Smackers. Smackers?
Yeah, it was because of my lips.
Ah, a reference to the size of her lips. She remembers hating the name, and she still suffers today when she thinks about those friends. Well, sitting next to Justine is one of her high school buddies. We brought him in, Eric. Eric admits that he called her Smackers, but says it was a harmless name. He said his nickname was Chubby. Justine, take me back to high school. Now, your reunion was a few weeks ago?
No, it was last year.
Last year?
No, I refused to go.
It was your 10th?
Yes.
And you did not go?
No.
Okay, why?
The main reason was I would get into a fight with some of the people there if I went. And
why?
In the beginning, we were all a group of very close friends. Two of them were my best friends, different periods of time. And yes, there was the ribbing, there were the jokes, the teases, we all had it for each other. But all of them were usually about events or something that could be taken care of, something simple. They were cruel to a point, but then it kind of went down except for Smackers. That was the one towards me that continued, and they would not let up. So
if you went to this reunion, nobody goes to a reunion with the thought that they're going to start a fight. What kind of fight? You mean Eric would jump out and call you Smackers and you'd smack him?
Eric was the only one that I'm still friends with out of the entire group.
Really?
Because of
Well, what would the fight be?
Oh, that's a long story. It started off with The ribbing and the jokes went through high school. At the end of high school, I asked people to stop. I was young. I was the youngest one in the group, and I didn't understand being the only black. I didn't understand that this was racial. I was naive, thinking smackers, no big deal. But it started hurting. The ribbing started getting more and more. After high school, I said, please, no more. I don't want to hear it. They said, sure, no problem. Then it continued. People moved away. Then one person in particular moved away, came back, told everyone about smackers, and it continued again. And they just would not let up. I was like, after I said, forget about everybody, I don't want to deal with all these people, they would call me up on the phone, they would leave messages on my answering machine.
Did that happen? Eric, did that happen?
That happened with some of our friends that we used to have.
When did it?
Well, it happened up to about, I guess about 5 years ago. That happened.
So you're 5 years out. Can I have a handkerchief or Kleenex or something? It's okay. You're 5 years out of school. Are you afraid to go?
I didn't go to the 10-year either.
You
but-
didn't go either?
No, no.
Why?
Marisa and I were good friends. At my engagement party, Marisa, we come from Coastal, Virginia, very small town. It seems like that's a running thing. And at my engagement party, supposedly, I never saw anything, but supposedly Marisa was very flirtatious with my husband. The next morning, I had college friends that had stayed over, and they had said, you know, you've got a problem here. Marisa was like all over Vin, and in that
your
age.
friends told you this?
Right, my college friends who didn't know Marisa real well.
Okay.
Instead of like stepping back and taking a look at the situation, I took some bad advice, and I didn't say anything to Marisa. And I let it fester, and I let it fester, and I let it fester. And then what happened was right before our dear friend Pam's wedding, 2 days before, at her bachelorette party.
Okay, now Pam is with us?
Yes.
Pam, up there in the audience. Pam is going to have a wedding. All right, stand up, Pam. What happened? 2 days before the wedding.
Right.
They had this disagreement, and then 2 days before the wedding at the bachelorette party, we were having dinner, and they were getting along famously, and I was tickled pink because I thought, oh goodness, they're getting along great, this is going to work out.
The best friends are back together,
Oh, yeah,
being
yeah,
best
I
friends.
was really excited about it. So then we said, okay, well, we'll leave here and we'll go out partying elsewhere, and Marisa and Tina are like, oh, we'll go together in Tina's car. I'm like, okay. So we're pulling out of the parking lot, and I noticed this car is kind of maybe rocking a little bit, you know, and there's a lot of loud screaming coming from the car, and I'm like, oh my goodness, things are not working out real well here, and this is my wedding.
What was happening?
Well, I think they started to discuss it a little bit too much, you know, and they just went back to square one, and it was worse than it had ever been, I think, at that point. And I don't think they've spoken to each other since that night.
So till the
10
day
years
you
ago.
came here, you were best friends in high school. You didn't go to the reunion. Is it because you didn't want to meet Marisa?
Well, because Wacosan's such a small town, and we all know everybody, Beth, and there's Donna, and we all know each other, and I was afraid to go into a situation where maybe Marisa would want to kill me or something.
All right, now wait a minute. How long have you
Or
been
confront
married?
me. I'm not good with confrontation. Marisa's real good at it.
How long have you been married?
9 years.
And has he in any way taken Marisa out in the 9 years or been with her in 9 years? Nothing.
No.
So these friends who were busybodies at your wedding
Right.
were just
At my
busybodies.
engagement party, right.
Marisa, how do you feel about what Tina's saying?
Well, that's exactly what happened at her engagement party. Unbeknownst to me, I was there with my boyfriend at the time, who is now my husband. We were there with another couple from Richmond, down from Richmond, and had a wonderful time. And I had no idea that anything surrounding.
This is Patty. Her name is Patty, and Tim. When they attended their 20th high school reunion, you guys are just starting out. Their 20th high school reunion, they were terrified to go. Is that correct? Why?
Well, I don't think it was terrified. I was very apprehensive to go. Patty and I dated in high school, and I discovered before going back to the reunion that she was going to be there. I hadn't seen her in 16 years. There's a certain feeling of unknown, what would happen, how she would receive me, how she would react to me. Guilt.
What was the guilt?
We didn't end our relationship on the best of terms, really.
We had hurt each other pretty badly, and then there was no time. The way that you kind of worked through, Pam, We had no intermediary. We just went off in different directions, and a whole chunk of time, 20 years went by, and this was all unresolved, and this was the first person I ever had fallen in love with, so it was a big deal that had been shelved for both of us for a long time.
And you married someone else.
And I was happily married.
And you were going to see her happily married with children at the reunion. Were you married?
No. No, I was not.
How did you feel about going to your reunion?
I was excited about it. At the last minute, my husband couldn't attend because of a conflict, and I had been married so long that I all of a sudden didn't want to go. I wasn't used to going anywhere unescorted. So dear friends of mine from elementary school jumped school, and they called you Fatty.
Among other things,
Among
yeah.
other things.
And you're wearing my high school colors.
Am I? Okay. But this is particularly difficult for you. You're not going to go, but there's something that you feel they ought to know, which is what?
Well, there's a lot of things they need to know. While I was at high school, I really felt like the odd man out. I was pushed away from most of the military functions because of my weight, and there were rumors about me being gay. And it just happens that the rumors are now true. It was not an easy situation in high school at all.
The high school reunion is not the problem. Well, there's some pretty heavy problems here, including Ian's. What is the problem if it's not the high school reunion?
Sally, you said it. There were some very really deeper issues here. For Ian, I think it's about feeling the acceptance of who he is more than whether the cadets accept who he is. And feeling that the only way that he will feel acceptable is through their eyes. The real issue is feeling acceptable through your own eyes and feeling able and confronting that conflict, perhaps within yourself.
See, he's really afraid of how they will look if they have not been successful enough. They're afraid that people will not recognize them, will not care if they're there. Or perhaps they're afraid to see somebody that they're afraid to face, an old rival, an ex-boyfriend. But really, once they overcome these fears, and they do come, they find that they have a wonderful time. And all of these reasons blur into the past. And the present, the reality, is quite different. They're accepted, they have a wonderful time, and in fact, they do overcome a lot of the fears.